Okay. Councillors, I will open this, our October meeting, and welcome everyone. And I do wish to note that councillors who have made the effort today that have been doing Zoom, Councillor Cook, good to see you, mate. And I'll recommend them to be making to attend our workshop, attend our council meeting. It's been really appreciated. So I hope everything's going well in your world. Councillors, we'll open the meeting. This meeting will be recorded for placement on council website for the purpose of broadening knowledge and participation in council issues and demonstrating council's commitment to openness and accountability. All speakers must ensure that their comments are relevant to the issue at hand and to refrain from making personal comments or criticism or mentioning any private information. No other person are permitted to record the meeting unless specifically authorised by council to do so. Now, opening prayer, we give thanks for the contribution by pioneers of these efforts and to those who fought the various wars for the fabric of Turnbull community we have today. May the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be accepted in thy sight, O Lord. Amen. Acknowledgement of country, I would like to acknowledge traditional custodians of this land we're meeting on today. I'd also like to pay respect for those past, present and emerging of the Yucca, Kamilaroi and Bunjalung nations and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people. Councillors, with our apologies, we do have an apology from Deputy Mayor Councillor Sawyer. I will move the second to accept that apology, please. Councillor Murray, I thank you. Second by Councillor Michael Petrie. I thank you. All in favour? Yeah, carried. Councillors, disclosures of interest. A couple of disclosures of interest to do with item COM 30/20, Mines First, to do with local heritage space fund. 2021 applications to do with the item 2, which is IN 20/70374 1AE. It's from the trust. My daughter is the secretary of the trust. No financial gain from me there. The other one is the next item in that report, which is IN 20 2DEA 56CA. It's an item from the application for the Show Society. I am a member of the Show Society Vice President. Once again, there's no financial gain for myself, and nor will I be doing any trade work, and I'll be staying in the hall to vote on those issues, and it's less than significant. Councillor McNish has handed one over to do with the same item, 30/20 Local Heritage Fund. He's closely related to one of the applicants, and it's less than significant, he'll be staying in the meeting. Can I have a move in a second to accept those declarations of interest, please? Councillor Bob Reagan, thank you. Second by Councillor Berry, and thank you. All in favour? Again, carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Councillors, we'll have our normal meeting, then we have a couple of the of those extraordinary meetings. You want to box them all together, or we just treat them as one? For someone who was in attendance at those 3 meetings, I'd like to move that they are true and correct records.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
With the correction.
Right. Councillor, if you want to move them and then sort out the correction.
Yeah.
Okay. You happy to move?
Yeah.
Thank you. Second, please. Councillor White, thank you. I'll go to you now, Councillor Berry. Which in the normal meeting or in the extraordinary?
No, it's in the minutes of the road and traffic. I wasn't in attendance, but I was in attendance.
Councillor, bear with me. Is the roads and traffic in our last meeting?
Well, the minutes are in the.
I know that.
Yeah.
Well, you want to talk about the correction when we do that roads and traffic?
Yeah, well, whatever.
I'm sorry, I thought you were meaning these ones we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, well,
So there's a correction in the roads and traffic in that report.
Yeah.
Well, we'll deal with that when we do the report. I apologise. You still happy to move the adoption of the Councillor Petrie second? You still happy there? Right, councillors. So we're endorsing that the 3 meetings are true and correct record. All in favour? Against? Yeah. Thank you. Table of documents, councillors. We do have an addendum item. This later is a report to do with the Tourism Advisory Committee, and it will be item RC 27/20. We'll deal with that item when we're dealing with the other reports to do with committees. Can I have a move in a second to accept that addendum item, please? Councillor Wright, thank you. Second, please. Councillor Murray, and I thank you. All in favour? Again? Yeah. Excuse me. Councillor, there's no public access for this meeting. There's no mirror meeting. Items to be considered in confidential. Councillors, we have one item in confidential later in the meeting. There's two items to be discussed there, COM 31/20 and EC 015/20. Can I move the second that these be dealt with in the confidential part of our meeting? Councillor Mike Beakley, thank you. Second, please. Councillor Tom Peters, thank you. All in favour? Carried. Open council reports. Councillors, in your hard copy, which I would hope that we've all got. We have item COM 20/20 to do with 221 Australia Day Awards, Australia Day event. I'd move in a second to deal with this item, please. Councillor Bronwyn, thank you, thank you. Second by Councillor Berry, I thank you. I'll hand it over to our CD to.
Through to me, very similar to last year and after we changed the policy the year before. The only concern is what's happened with COVID in the last 6 to 8 months. It may be difficult to get some nominations for some of the areas because of COVID. There's been very little sports play. Those sport person of the year might be a little bit difficult. And that's my only comment. For questions or exception.
Question to our CD to do with the report. Councillor Bronwyn, yes?
With regard to the ambassador for the day, I see it's got, because of COVID and everything, it's not going to get some play. I've got a suggestion, but you want to do it in the open forum or just later?
What we'll do, the CD and I spoke about this subject. Spoke about it yesterday. What we'll do, we'll suspend standing orders to deal with the local identity. That's what you mean, from. And we'll deal with it because we're dealing with people's names.
Yes.
In that, then we'll come back once we got to thrash out all the things we should do. So happy to do it when we get there in a minute. Any other questions to the CE before we do what we're going to do a report? Councillor, did you share with it? It will be tough. We all know that because and no one's fault, but just the situation that we're dealing with at the moment. I commend the staff for putting the report together and getting there the best way we can. Brookston Park to do with it being screened and right out to the villages. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So, but we'll see how it all goes, basically. Councillor Oden, yes.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just got a bit of concern about the community event. There are enough of those to sort of put that.
Well, I totally agree. So once again, we'll just have to wait and see what sort of applications come in. There's a few things I know that are happening in the next little while. That's up to you. So, yes, Councillor Bronwyn, yes.
So don't forget that just before everything shut down, there was actually the Tennessee charity got it down. So I think that would be a nomination.
I apologise, Councillor, I just didn't hear what you said.
The motorcycle event that was held at this one,
Yes.
that got over 1,000 people now.
Yep.
I think that would be a nomination.
Okay, any other questions before we go into suspend standing orders, councillors? So you're all aware in the report before I go there, so on the third dot point, page 37, the council will not be applying for an ambassador through the Australian Day Ambassador Program, but will seek the local personnel to provide a brief message during the live streaming event, which I think is a really respectful and good thing to do. Why I'd like to go into suspend standing orders was obviously I had councillors' actual view on this, of local identity. We are talking about someone's person, and I'd rather be there and we come back and mention that so it goes in the report and not have it in the first one. Happy with that? All right. So would someone like to move motion that we suspend standing orders? Councillor Berry, thank you. Second, please. Councillor Bob Reagan, thank you. All in favour? Again, carried. Right. As a further dot point in the report. Yeah.
So through Mr. Mayor, I've got number 6 as a amendment.
Yep.
If everyone's in agreement.
Yeah.
Number 6, the local identities be approached to assist with the event.
Happy with that?
And we'll just leave the name, we've already got the name written down, whichever Annabelle, Terry, Deb, Tony, Tim, and Wishart, what's the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
name?
Yeah.
Ella?
Yeah.
Al Wishart.
Okay. So it's an amendment, would you like to move that, councillor Brown?
Yeah.
Second, please, councillor Berry, all in favour? Again, carried, now we put the whole report, all in favour? Again, carried. Thank you, councillors. Thanks, Mr. CEO. Second report, councillors, is item COM 29/20, expressions of interest to remove the band hall. Can I have a move to second here, please, to deal with this item? Councillor Berry, thank you. Second, councillor Mike Peters, thank you. And I'll hand over to Heidi. Good. I like the way you pass that on.
I still get it when it comes
And I
the other way.
Hand over to Heidi to present. What?
Thank you very much. The purpose of the report is to provide council with 2 expressions of interest that were received to apply and remove the band hall in accordance with the council resolution. The expression of interest is advertised material, and we now seek council's application. The band hall was originally constructed for the town's brass band, and been regularly used by the Gem Club and the Temple Park Club. It means a simple timber and iron gable roof, and the small ceiling roof which covers the porch area as well. Currently, the band hall is in need of major repairs and it needs to be tested for testing. And this has been identified in the council's building maintenance report. Rough estimates indicate that repairs may cost in excess of $200,000. This is only an estimate and we've had no quotes today. In the August meeting, a notice of motion was presented from Councillor Gary Berry and seconded by Councillor Jeff Sawyer to be permitted to remove the community band hall. Council resolves the expression features and remove the band hall from its current location in Town Street, Tenfield. First speculated in the Tenfield Star, website, and Tenfield in touch also. It was the expression of interest requested that a new proposal question and the requirement of the project be in accordance with the Tenfield local environment plan. The expressions of interest needed to be submitted by Tuesday, October. Council advised that the band hall listed in Schedule 5 of the Local Environment Plan 2013 as an item of environmental heritage, item I-02. And such removal of the band hall is subject to the lodgement of a development application by the applicant of the petition. The big, sorry, that contained in clause 5.2, the heritage conservation of the elephants. The DA must be accompanied by a heritage management document assessing the impacts of the removal, and that will have on the heritage significance of the heritage item. The DA accompanying Council predicts that the lodgement of the DA costs be an estimate of about $500 and heritage impact will be around $5,000. Council receives 2 expressions of interest from members of the community wanting to obtain the building and relocate it within Shire on their privately owned land. The first expression of interest in the confidential attachment 1 would like to relocate the building 2 kilometres west of town and be conditioned to have an unrestricted with an RT to hold functions such as RT bush, the general defect, as well as private home. They propose to dismantle the hall location, allowing to update the hall insulation, wiring, plumbing, and to make few changes such as relocating the add-on toilets and back room to the western side of the building, and the asbestos sheeting will not be able to be removed at the cost. And they wish to discuss this prior to any further planning. The second expression of interest is confidential attachment 2, and they'd like to relocate the building to a property in town and repurpose it as accommodation. They've recently completed a house removal project and the process involved and understand the requirements that would need to be met to remove the environmental plan 2000. Both of these applicants require more investigation and negotiation with the applicants to determine the full extent of their proposal. It is suggested that it would be beneficial if council could identify a preference based on the information that's been provided to date in these negotiations. Ongoing plans need to be developed to undertake the works required to improve the building, and the list is extensive, which council needs time for operational expenditure or grant funds confidential. As the building continues to deteriorate, the timeline for prohibited occupancy of the building without intervention is fast approaching and will necessitate the cancellation of the existing lease arrangement. It should also be noted that any upgrade works will also require council to consider the intended building, given its less. The community engagement that's been undertaken, members were invited to the expression and was advertised, previously mentioned. Concerned community members have contacted council to notify council that they are not happy with the building and would like to see it remain in its original position. It's expected council will receive objections from the community once the development application is lodged. The policy and regulation is the local environmental plan, and lodgement of the DA and heritage management documents is the responsibility of the person seeking to advantage. All costs associated with the removal will be the cost of the individual. Council will not outlay any funds except to remediate the land that the building provided on once the building. Should the building be removed from council managed land and located on private property, it will no longer be a council asset and would need to be removed from the asset plan. Should council retain the building, Vanderpool would remain a council asset plan. The legal risk information council has a favourable heritage assessment report will be provided and the risk of the heritage assessment report will be measured, and due to the lack of information provided in the expression of interest, concerns raised about the viability of the relocation being successful and the risk of not achieving a successful project outcome. The recommendations are to acknowledge the receipt of 2 expressions of interest, not to accept either expression of interest, and to proactively lobby for funding to undertake upgrades to the band hall.
Thanks, Ike. Councillors, questions to do with the report, to on your part. Before we go there, my lawyer's down there just to do with on page 45. I think I've had this conversation with you, but the share of the meeting. So the heritage impact assessment report, that's that's only if the building is to be removed. Yeah. And that would be from a type, like a Deborah Ray type person. Questions, councillors, to do with the report, Councillor Berry, and I'll go to you, Councillor Roden.
Mr Mayor, early in the piece, when we advertised this thing, I had somebody asking about the hall.
Yeah.
They couldn't look at the hall because of their talked to them about it. They came to see me yesterday with another expression. Way they would like to view the hall in respect of the museum, but thousands of, probably 50,000 items of everything from 1880 bus tickets right through to uniforms and everything else they want to display. I think it'd be a great asset for Lisbon, but and the Shire. But they couldn't visit because of the COVID restrictions. They were in Brisbane for 3 months, and that's the COVID restrictions put them back for ages actually. You know, since the COVID started, they get up here and had a house. I think they couldn't like they couldn't even see the house till recently. So, but they'd like to make advances to the hall's purchase, subsequent removal for lease. They can't do anything for 12 months. So whether that's relevant for us to look at, I don't know.
Councillor, the only suggestion I have there, because of that time frame due to the resolution, which in the, with the expression of interest, well, they didn't fit into there. That's right. But can we just sit that one for a bit?
Yeah.
And come back to it?
Yeah, no problem.
Well, there again, Councillor Grove, give you a card.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I've got some comment I'd like to make later if I get the opportunity again, but before I do that, because it will have a bearing on what those comments might be, I just want to clarify a couple of things, please.
Christian.
So firstly, I'm not sure who would have released it, but the ad that was placed there was apart from that, how much information did these people that submitted the expressions of interest actually receive? Because one of them in particular says they want to inspect the building. So were they given any opportunity prior to this to do all that, or was it just that ad they've seen and that's all they knew about what to do?
But certainly we provided this one. We certainly sent one person through, so we've had one person for it, the other person not. And as I said, they may well have undertaken inspection. So, it's awesome.
But actually asked them,
Yes, right.
and they were aware of that.
So, yes, so they did, as one person did spend, did actually, we were unable to accommodate them on the day that they suggested and actually accept one of those applications after the time frame of 2 days because we couldn't schedule their inspections. So we know we had time frame to make sure they could actually be agreed to actually accept it after the contract following.
Well, so the other one is, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation that's in the business paper here, there's 3 parts to that. So I just want to clarify that these are not actually options, these all would run together. It's not like we can accept option 1 or option 2, it's not like that. It's not written like that, so I assume that this recommendation is really all one. Is that correct?
That is correct. So as staff's recommendation based on some of the complexities that we've uncovered, which comes back to what James says in the ODP, as well as the expression we've received time, is the fact that we acknowledge the 2 expressions, which we love very much for taking the time to put in your expression. But we don't actually accept either of those expressions. That's outlined for some of those reasons why we have concerns, and one of those is to get a favourable heritage assessment to then come back to the council that development. So that's one of our main concerns, not necessarily provide or what they need to do, but what we perceive concern. And then we proactively set funding based on our recommendation to have the least impact on finances possible.
Yes, well, Mr. Mayor, can I make my comment?
Yep, question again. Councillor.
Thank you. Given that the recommendation as it stands is sort of all in one, and Collie's explained that really well, so that's the way I thought it was. I'd just like to comment about the I mean, we've had over, in recent times, lots of funding that has been applied for, and obviously there is a program that council undertook, trying to refurbish and keep up to speed all the halls in the shire. And they've all received funding pretty much, including one hall that doesn't actually belong to the shire. Yet we've got one in town that does belong to the council and has had nothing done this year. I just have a bit of difficulty getting my head around that.
Councillor, it's a very good point to raise.
Why that is so. There's been people housed in there for, well, not housed, but using the facility and paying rent, I believe, for a lengthy amount of years. And therefore I'm really pleased that I understand the way this is written, because the submissions that you received, I don't see as being really good submission. Obviously, they didn't have all the information. So I'm supportive because of that. I believe we should keep the hall. We should put it on a maintenance program and we should see funding. And what happens about the people that use it, well, that's another matter. We shouldn't let the hall be murdered. That's already happened. So I'm supportive of acknowledging these submissions, not accepting it, and lobbying for them.
Thank you, Councillor. Any more questions, comment to the staff? I'll go with you, Councillor Bowman, you indicated. Yeah. Councillor Peters, Councillor Mike, and then I'll go back to you, Councillor Rob. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought the idea of removing the hall was the council of no costs. If it's removed in the community, council have to pay for the cost of repairs. Now, if it goes to a commercial buyer, they fix the thing up, or not buyer, but remove it. They fix the thing up and pull the piece or whatever the case may be, their own specs.
That's exactly right, Councillor. Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly right. Councillor Mike.
I agree with what Councillor Rogan said, but if something happens that you've got to get rid of it, I think you should, if you get expressions of interest, should itself put up for auction. I bet you get a lot of interest in it then. You just give it up now, who are you going to give it to?
And I'm not, Councillor, we raised a point of disagreement with dealing with everyone.
Yeah,
So that's.
if they come up with a heritage thing that we really want to get rid of it, put that themselves.
Right. That's Councillor Bowman, then I'll come to you, Councillor McNish.
Thanks. I'm just wondering, are we still going to, with the funding to keep fixing it? I noticed in the attachment booklet on the last page, there's no mention of the wiring with electricity, yet that was a big thing when we went in today. And all that wiring has probably have to be replaced, it's not in that.
We mentioned, I think, before, that's not, this gets our own corruption. I think so once again. We did actually do that, we will discuss some other items, I think they will.
Some of those items are quite small, they're not huge. Costs, other things are more expensive. So I was just wondering about the electricity, because that's where you get your cost, the spend, etc. With regard to last comment saying, it's fast approaching necessitation of cancelling the lease arrangement. What's the rough time?
At this point in time, we haven't undertaken successful. That's it. Council likes to accept any of those expressions and we go down on the existing tenants that made successful expression and negotiating with those banks. That's what the council choose, obviously, not to take any further action on another situation. If you do, then they will then actually the work organisations.
My last query is there therefore an alternate location? Council have an location for the general. And I think, sorry, just quite following this, the comment council voting made about a hall setting money that doesn't belong to council. Well, that hall is actually, which is not in my ward, but it's right in time, and
that to actually send it for that. So it's very, very important. And if you really look at one compared to the other, there's no comparison. But
Aware of that.
this is a really important role to a lot of people, not just the Jennifer, but I mean, something like the 21st, there's something that I fully understand that people have learned about it. I'd be interested in what heritage requirements there would be for removal, and what, if it was removed, is there extra cost because of inaction of moving it? Does that interfere with this?
I was going to say, to make, do you want to outline just the process? Because we have alluded to that in the report, and a little bit in reverse at this point as well. So, as I said, maybe the mind that is actually apply and commence the process to have it removed from the LEP if that is the final intention. We've jumped the LEP between the need to get the heritage assessment for that building. Depending on the heritage assessment, the planning teams don't have to make a recommendation to action, that development application. And one of the challenges with that too is that we're telling the intent people to remove the block and still have a building that they have to jump forward to satisfy until the judge and so it's a little bit of a problem procedurally, more so than activity. Process.
So during this matter, the process is set out in the LEP, which is a legislative issue, so we can't avoid that process. So under, as mentioned, clause 5.10 of the LEP, there's what we have to do as a council to process an application that is regardless if it's a or if it's a private resident. That's and there would need to be an assessment undertaken if it was to be removed or relocated. And as to the recommendation that is, don't know.
Just before we go to you, Councillor Nish, and then Councillor Berry, just to remind councillors when we talk about the heritage listing, that's on our estimate, Jennifer Shire. It's not state, that's our estimate. But just be aware of that. Councillor Nish.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. It certainly had up a can of worms here.
blame Councillor Berry.
Yeah, but I'm listening to Bob's comments with interest, and obviously the 10 clubs, fairly well in New Zealand. Very little, Bob, they're paying very, very minimal. If the hall is going up, there's no one who will be able to pay what we expect. They could pay about $500. That's something, and my both members of that, so in real terms, they pay very, very little for. If it does go to private people, which who these expressions are from, this is our council's hands. You've got no more maintenance, no more money to spend on it. The other thing on top of that is that those proposals go bust. Go to the hall in, it's all in the disrepair and history just falls on the ground. So it's a very hard one actually. Bob, Gary, sent me in the brochure, which is about the listing. So that's about the best offer. It's very high for it. But then again, if they did that, still be owned by council, that's what about some money. So, I've got this fixed by the whole thing. But I thought when Gary first brought that, it'd be easy to solve. But it's not.
Councillor Berry, then we'll go back to you, Councillor Brommer.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to recommend we keep items 1 and 2, scrap number 3, and then call for expressions of interest in September, because there's more than one person contacting me about that law. Both wanted it, as you see the heritage. Did you get a chance to look at this? But the Heritage Park wanted to put that in as a museum for themselves, and somebody else wanted to do a similar thing. But this one here would be, it's not open to the public, it's not private land, but they intend to have events there with all the training, all the paraphernalia in place. So that's in the future. I don't like, I agree with Councillor Peter, I don't think either of the expression of interest that we've got there really feels what I'd like to see done with the law.
Councillor, I'll take it that you can flag an amendment.
Yeah.
So I'll come back to you with that respect. But just go to Councillor Bromwell. Councillor Bromwell.
Well, I was sort of doing amendments, just on what Kylie said about conducting risk assessment, I think that should be information. And you've got to fix up the number 2 there, it's expressions. In part 2, but I was going to say 3 should be conduct risk assessment of the building to prioritise works. That would inform either us for funding or if we go down the line of council recognition and council Berry, if it goes back out to further expressions of interest, that then says to people, this is what needs to be done to make this building safe. And then we aren't potentially letting someone take a building that could be dangerous if that ended up happening. So my suggestion is in part 2 there, get the S again, expression. Change number 3 to conduct risk assessment of the building to prioritise works. Or to identify work prioritisation, that should be better. And then number 4, make that the lobby for funding for upgrades.
What I'll do, Councillor, I'll come back to you with that because I respect Councillor Berry's as flagged an amendment. I'm going to deal with that first and we'll ask for a second. Councillor Peters, I'll go to you before we tidy all this up.
Just a quick insight. Is there any money involved with removing the?
Yeah, Heath,
Who's going to put up the money?
whoever was successful with expressions of interest.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I agree with councillor. I think we want to put it up for auction, at least council gets the money out of it.
Right.
So it's interesting.
The only thing that I was trying to do is appreciate that, Councillor Drummond indicated information. The outcome of any of those assessments largely so in terms of we can prioritise those risks from every that it won't actually be terribly helpful set of requirements if we maintain it as a at it in terms of keeping the location of the funds that need to be there, whereas if it's relocated to different land, be that private or public access, that will largely depend on the budget. So in terms of the
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would be in favour of collectively funding to go ahead. It's got a lot of memories for a lot of people. It belongs to the people. But I think it's a ludicrous idea to give one part to another part. It still belongs to the council. It's good sense of that. Like Twinkley Parks and Gardens. There's a Raymond Parks and Gardens to beautify that area. And that hall would enhance, would hopefully enhance all of that. So that's what I would propose to do.
Right. What I'll do, councillors, I'm going to deal with the flag amendment from Councillor Berry. I have to comment just a bit of a wrap up. We're all had a pretty good go. Councillor Paul, you don't even want to ask if you want to put your 5 cents in here, or you're absorbing it. And I'll do that, but just some comment, and it's purely a wrap up. Firstly, councillors with the workshop, I commend everyone, and this is what this council is good at, for making the time and effort to go down and have a look, and so you actually know what we're dealing with here. If we went down the path of and referring to the recommendation of funding to upgrade this building, because it is a council asset. Colin, to commend you, Colin, you're always speaking to us about our assets and how what we do probably need to look after, what we probably should not look after, whether we agree or disagree. That's just how we roll. But it's something that we always need to be aware of as a council, you know, because it all adds to our bottom line, because we own the building. And yes, it is in disrepair. You can't blame former councillors or councils for that happening. It's just one of those things. You know, I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't, until a few years ago, didn't even know the council owned the thing. So that's how naive I was as mayor. So the fact that it's been brought to our attention is a good thing, and I thank the staff for the good work that they've done in that. The fact that this is supporting your question, Councillor Bromwell, to do with a risk assessment and get a proper detail on what actually needs to do to the hall to bring it up to speed. And I'll repeat myself, it is a council asset. Gem Club, once works, if we were to retain, work was to be done on the hall, Gem Club couldn't operate there while that work was being done. We all viewed the hall the other day and seen the condition that it's in. And it's just not real, speak. It needs to be brought up to speed if it was to be retained. So that funding, there's our challenge. Originally to move from that area was to increase car parking and help our council staff out down there. So just please remember that. That's where it will all coming from. Because the building does hold a lot of memories and is a heritage building, it concerns me because that's not an easy path to travel down, to remove it. So it is, to support your comments, Councillor, it is a contentious issue and I don't know what the answer is, but in time it'll all work out. I know that. That's not helping council situation with our staff. I will go and deal with these amendments now and we'll see what we come up with. Councillor Berry.
Well, I'd like to get rid of proactive public funding to undertake upgrades, etc.
Yep.
I'd like to replace that ask for expression next September.
Next September.
Yeah, next September, because that code will be good by then. The people will be able to have a real good look at it. People that lived across the border still have got to apply for the banking degree.
We have council elections next September.
Before council, also have to do.
Well, I just wanted to
John,
make comment, Mr. Say.
I'm not 100% sure of the rules of local government, but state and federal government have got a caretaker period. But I suspect there'd be something about making decisions in a short period of time just before an election.
That's correct. So you want to take a vote. If you want to choose that outcome of council, you would need to be advertised in February, March to have it tidied up by that particular time.
Councillor Berry, I hope that's helping you with this recommendation. Do you want to start again?
well, I just thought if we call for expressions of interest in September, the new council could have work. Or August, if one or two, the new council could have work. It doesn't have to be this council.
Yeah, no, Mr. Say, please.
I'm hesitant in saying this, but the problem we've got is a misfeasance and malfeasance problem, similar to other things that are going on at the moment with the folding boards March next year. If we don't do anything and there's a problem, and everyone in this room has inspected it, we're malfeasant, and if we have to do something, we misfeasant, or the other way around. I always get confused. So the problem we've got is the first official complaint, first incident, or when it comes up to WHS inspection, which is driven by that, it's obvious that the person doing the inspections is going to either condemn the use of the building temporarily while immediate rectifications are carried out, of which we've got no money. And that would stop the Gem Club and the Car Club using it whilst either the money was found or whilst the work got done. So by deferring a decision for 12 months is actually a risk to the organisation. That's about it, really. It's like a bus company owner knowing that there's problems with the power steering on the bus and saying, well, we can't afford it this month, we're going to do it for 12 months and then crash and someone's hurt the bus. Well, the person that made that decision or the company that owns that, they'd be deemed as culpable, and all of us have just inspected a building that smelled of petrol out the back and wires everywhere. But in my opinion, the front entrance wasn't overly fit for purpose. You can read between the lines there. So we're leaving ourselves open legally to much risk.
Thanks for your comments, Mr. C.E. and good comments. Councillor Berry, so basically you're wishing to go back to go back to the committee for expressions of interest.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. Yeah. Okay. David, well, so he's give you that advice, and it is good advice. You wish to still continue with that, but move your time frame.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you with your amendment.
Well, we're moving the time frames, already a problem.
No, that's right.
That's
You're
right.
entitled to an amendment, councillor, and I'm giving you that opportunity. I'm just trying to help you with your wording and
Okay.
your time frame. But basically, just go back to the community for expressions of interest.
Yeah. That was, okay, well, so if we do that, we've still got the same problem with Mel.
Well, that'll give these people the opportunity to apply.
Yeah.
You can't make special rules for different ones. You're aware of that, councillor?
No, I just want to get around the code thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I probably wouldn't bore it up.
Yeah, no, I'm pleased you did bring it up.
Okay,
I'll come to you. I'm just trying to deal with this, the wording for this amendment. Please help Christie here, I'm dealing with amendment, then I'm gonna ask for a second, councillor, if you put some wording on.
yeah, okay, we'll call for expression of interest, I suppose, yeah.
Right? So we're saying February. Right, yes. Go back to community and call for expression of interest in February 2021. Okay? Right. Before I ask for a second, councillor, did you have comment to do with this amendment or
Yes, I seek clarification on something.
on the amendment? I'm dealing with the amendment.
Yes, it is to do with the amendment,
This amendment,
yes.
right. I'll allow it, councillor.
This would be it.
Yes?
Mr. Mayor. I just seek clarification on this. If the hall is moved to Lisbon, for instance,
Yes.
who bears the cost?
The successful applicant.
Yeah, but it's a gifted thing to Lisbon, is it not? That's what I seek clarification.
Mr. So you all maybe this up, do you want to help councillor Murray there with how it all works?
We haven't received an expression that is, when we've sought those expressions of interest, so if anyone wants to receive, council go down and seek further expressions.
And we do hypothetical here, and we say, well, this is all taking place.
Hypothetically, council, we could go down and as we talked about regardless of what we may fall into disrepair on property, it may be reviewed, council, they are unable to maintain that asset. It's a very long time. But there's too many variables to jump to get what would happen.
Does that help you, councillor? It's fairly clear in the ad, I mean, and as any councillor can, because if you read the ad, it's expressions of interest, all right, well, that's clear. And it all costs to shift a bit, the building. The conversations I had with staff, and I thank them for their time, was the heritage part, to get to understand that. It's fairly detailed, and it still is, but we need to be aware, that is a problem. What I'm going to do, I'm asking for a seconder for that amendment for number 3. Is there a seconder? Councillor Berry, the amendment's lost due to lack of a second. Now what I'm going to do, Councillor Bronwyn, you've indicated a bit of a change here with the recommendation. Did you want to have a go?
Yeah, I just before I do a question.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so if it, say the word expression, and it went to, as Councillor Murray said, to a private land holding, then what they do with it over time is up to them.
Yep.
Unless it went to somewhere, say like the Show Society for their heritage collection.
Yep.
And then it stays in public
Yep.
ownership.
Going to another heritage precinct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, my, me,
Just so we're clear there before you start, Councillor. To me, so everyone is aware, we'll get there. The shifted building, it needs to be delisted first.
it could run concurrently, so a development application for demolition, which
Yep.
is either demolish or remove,
Yep.
it's the same thing. And an amendment to the LAP to have it removed from the LAP.
Okay.
So they can run concurrently, but it's a little bit backwards, taking DA first and then
Yep.
council.
So Councillor, what was it, because the more we talk about, the more we'll understand that. Okay. It's a heritage thing hanging out, that's a big issue. Well, it's not an issue, because it's a good thing, but to shift the things, just can't do it. until that, unless it's going to another area, in our area. Yep. Right, councillor Bromwich.
Amendment, number 2, it should be expression of interest, not expression. To be as per part 1.
Yep.
So number 3, I'm suggesting conduct risk assessment of the building to identify works prioritisation. Conduct risk assessment of the hall to identify works prioritisation. And then move number 3 to change it to number 4. The proactive one. While that's happening, just say, for instance, if you go to say the show society or something, it would then still retain its heritage.
Yes.
It would be able to do that. Yes.
Because we're going to a heritage precinct.
Yeah. So we would need to, we need to get, I guess, a supporting heritage assessment to date that relocating to that location. What impact that would have for the life. The other thing is if we do it up, will Jen probably keep it all day?
That's a conversation, council, and
Yes.
time to issue.
Yeah, and so if that's the case, do we have land that they might be able to raise money to shed on or something?
They're really nice that come up. They speak about once we achieve that status, they're attached to council. Like we do with this particular building, which also really needs to be practiced.
Anyway, that's what I'm going to speak to them.
Just, council, I'm gonna do this, your number 3, that's for the council varies as an amendment. Okay, so you happy with that? Chrissy, if you just put up with number 3, then the number 4 gets moved, that's an amendment to councillor Bromwich. I'll ask for a second in a minute. I'll go to our CEO for some comment, Mr. CEO.
Okay, so this is left field, I've only just thought of it. Part of it, so the heritage going to the Bengal going to the showground ticks the box for heritage, so that there's less risk of the whole thing falling over because there's no heritage approved. Moving from one heritage building to a heritage precinct.
I didn't say that until we've got the report.
So would it be fair to say that there's much more of a chance of that being a success than if going to private property?
I think it's
So if that's the case, and council's up to 200K, and there's a huge problem with misfeasance and malfeasance, we've all exposed ourselves to the risk and we've got no money to fix it. Would it be cheaper, less risk, and better for the community, for council to pay for the vehicle to be shifted to the showground or contribute to the funding and through a tripartite relationship with the trust, the showground and council to pay for it to be removed, a third of 50K versus 200K, and have it moved to a heritage precinct such that it would remain in quasi-public, well actually in public hands because the showground's a trust, would remain in public hands, get off the council's books, it would cost council a third of 50K instead of the whole 200K, it would stop the misfeasance and malfeasance risk, and it would give it to an area where other public groups such as the Gem Club and the Car Club and whoever else can still use the buildings.
Exactly right.
or it would now step in.
Whatever, but because it's going to a trust, or because it's not going to council decision, because it would be going to a trust, you'd assume that the ideals of the trust are to provide a community service, otherwise it wouldn't exist. And the whole showground precinct is 100% for community service and providing a community fabric. So if the council paying a third or half or whatever, it's up to council, half of the 50K would make it more attractive and advantageous for the trust and the showground to keep the tent for the other half bearing in mind that Rhombus told us it'd be at least 50 grand because the building they moved from CRT, which isn't go very far,
Yeah, one posture.
yeah, that cost 50k. So if it's going to cost 50k to move it, and council pay half or a third or whatever of that, it would make it more attractive to the trust, more chance of having a heritage tick. The community groups wouldn't be so peeved because they still have access to it. It would be held in an area that have an obligation to maintain the heritage significance of all the buildings within the trust, and it'd be off council book for depreciation.
I'm happy to move part 5, which would be approach the show society to see if they would accept the bill.
The trust. No, you have to. Next week.
Approach the.
Showground trust.
We've got to tell them how much it's going to cost to repair it.
To see if they are interested in having the building reloaded, paid there. I think it's fair to 200,000, then 50,000.
Can I just, I'll share with the committee in the conversations over the last 6 weeks, 2 months that I've had with CE and senior staff with my show society hat on. I presented this not at a meeting, but just in general conversation to the chairperson of the trust and many members of the show society, all very keen on doing this. But it was about 10, I thought you'd move to about 10 grand, knowing nothing. Absolutely wrong. We could have scratched that together because I have no problem with the expression of interest or the act. Just shifted to the showground in a heritage precinct. Gem club, car club can still operate. They would have to pay the trust a fee to use the building because once it's on the trust, it's in possession of theirs. They look after it. So, but then because the show society is in possession of many archival belongings and trinkets from the 144 years of the show, and badly needing to exhibit them, minutes, books, everything, and give them an area with a bit of work on that building to exhibit those things in that building, which should be good.
GM?
Yep.
So who would be responsible for doing the building up once it arrives to the showground?
Trust the showground.
Through Mr.
So they
Mayor,
pick up the town.
my suggestion was for council to make it more attractive to the trust in moving the building, but once it passed through that gateway, it's all there.
Yeah.
So
And that was understood.
and is that, would they be susceptible to that?
They were. The biggest figure was the cost of removal. No way in the world we could come up with that sort of money. And I only, not being lazy, and we'll get back on track in a minute. I only asked one builder, and I respect his opinion. He was involved with the moving of the building we used as an example. That's what he said, and I said, I didn't realise it was worth anything like that. But it's worth it. But that's your record. It cost 50 grand to move that building from CRT down to the opposite hospital. Said nothing. I'll go to you, Councillor Berry. Paul, you first.
Thanks.
Yep.
Just a quick comment. So the council looks like about $4,000 in depreciation costs from and obviously the other option of going for grant funding and that would be to increase the depreciation cost. So I'm taking this proposal, obviously saving some £100 there. My only minor comment, can't bring down value of land or $89,000. So we have a hit of some proposal over but it's be aware of that.
No, thanks for that information, Paul.
So just the last section. Relocated to the showground with council contributing to the removal cost.
Yep.
No disclosed amount, but this is for discussion with the show.
Just from working with the council, I'll go to see if put some more comment.
Through Mr. Mayor, it's not, I appreciate where Councillor Peake is coming from, contributing to the cost, but it's a bit like the start of land. That doesn't give staff any mandate to do anything. The council's responsible for determining the amount of money spent. It's like a capital, not council, but yet spend $200,000 over there, we go and fix up whatever that is, 200,000.
Yeah.
And still don't buy land for X, still don't buy land for X. I'm not comfortable with not having council involved in the assessment of the amount. would say is that staff discuss with the Showground Trust and bring a report back to council for consideration of that.
Your amendment, councillor, you happy with that? Yeah. What I will do, I've got a couple of councillors indicating, councillor Bear, I'll go to you, then you, councillor Rowe.
Well, Mr Mayor, I'll be happy to second that, number 5, but do we need conducted a risk assessment of the hall if we're going to get rid of it? And then number 4, proactively lobby for funding to
Place and Ben, yeah.
So,
A good point.
So we're either
Because of councillor Bromwich Beakley's amendment, I'll leave it
Yeah,
to
if that's the feeling of the room is that we would consider moving to the showground rather than keeping it,
Yeah.
having the $200,000 here.
Yep.
Then I'm happy to move 3 and 4 and
Yep.
change 5 to 3 with the city.
From our CEO with these suggestions about coming back with a report. Councillor Rowe.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, it's what I was originally going to say is pretty much been covered. I was just going to request that a report come back from the Show Society to council first. Because obviously it's going to have to go to their committee and they have to agree on this. So that's all I was going to say. I'd like to mention too a previous comment of council, which is about the young people. That's not quite that. I actually just had a conversation with them, and because I've always been aware that whichever way this goes, the people that are using it are pretty much out in the cold anyway. Because whether it's going to be removed, refurbished, or relocated, they're going to be in limbo for some time. So no, they didn't actually hit it.
All good. Right, I'll go to you, councillor Bromwich. We need to tidy this up and get going. So you're happy to take on the take 3. That both Showground Trust is out of interest in having the building relocated to the showground with count. So take the
We
council.
had a showground, yeah, we moved to council.
And come back
So
to,
with a report to council.
Yeah.
Sorry, with a staff report to council at earliest.
With a further report to my council after negotiations.
yeah. Having the building relocated to the showground and further report.
So this is on the basis that, by suggesting it goes to the showground,
Yeah.
it remains in public heritage precinct,
Yes.
available for public use.
Yep.
Securing that building with all its, because I've had people who've got nothing with the Gen Club also say, oh, we went our 21st there, we did this, we got married, da, 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 da. So it would secure it in a heritage precinct that stays in public management.
Yep.
And helps to with the great work the showground people do in working with these people to try and get that. So I'm just thinking this might be happening.
That's what I thought too, councillor, and I hope we get there. So you're happy with the wording there, councillor Baker? I'm using this as an amendment from you.
Yeah.
So there to, and with a further report to council after negotiation. Do I have a second for the amendment? Councillor Bob Wright, thank you. Councillor Bromwich, you want to speak to the amendment?
No.
Councillor Bob, you want to speak to the
I
amendment?
think it's all been said.
Right, all in favour of the amendment? Against? Carried. You against the amendment, councillor? Yeah. Okay, the amendment's carried. Now I'll put the whole recommendation. All in favour? Against? Carried. Do you want to break this one? Yeah. Right. Got a motion to suspend standing orders. Councillor Murray, second by Councillor Ward, thank you.
What's your name? The starting box.
Aye. Right, just going forward.
Yes.
To do this. I will ask for a motion to resume standing orders, please. Councillor Paul, thank you. Second, please. Councillor White, thank you. All in favour? Again, Terry, councillors, as always, thanks for enjoying the morning tea with their staff. And I just, before we go on, I just need to note, I don't care how long it takes us as a council when we're dealing with an item. So I respect everyone's opinion, and within the code of meeting practice, how I chair a meeting and give everyone their voice, I think it's really important. And I think we are very good at coming up with a resolution, whether it needs to be amended or whatever. And I do commend all councils for the way you conduct yourself in those debates. Because one thing I do respect is your opinion. And that's what you're elected to do. So we always get there, and I really appreciate it. So Councillor Murray is coming, but we will continue. We need to get on. So we're on page 48. We're doing the item COM 30/20, Local Heritage Places Fund 220-221 applications. Scott, move to second to deal with this item, please. Councillor Berry, thank you. Second by Councillor Bromley, thank you. And we're both pleased to make welcome as always, and I'll hand over to May to present the report.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, this report is recommended to council the applications that we received this year under our Local Heritage Places Fund. In the report, it refers to 14, there are actually 15 applications. You'll see in the attachment, particular late application came in by Heritage. This will be included. It's very encouraging the amount of applications we've got this year. We had struggled last year to actually have all of the money included and sent out through the funds. So we have had a bit of a rollover. So all the applications coming have been successful. We would then write to those applicants. There's a few points of clarification. But, the application there, the report there for council.
Before we do, May, I thank you, Councillor Fair, when it is in your attachments, it's an attachment booklet, and it is attachment number 1, final Tamaku Local Heritage Places Fund. So be aware of that, they're all there. Collie, without putting a note, did you want to speak to disclosure of interest by a staff member to do with this, just so we clear the air?
Just if it does cause any confusion at the meeting, so appropriate disclosures were made and record disclose those.
And make it also clear that the staff member in her position is absolutely nothing to do with it. Don't deal with them. Okay. Open and transparent. Questions to May to do with the report, councillors? Councillor Bromley, yes.
Just one. In relation to the state plan, the comment there is that came up at the hearing. The request is to replace the rate with a metal gate, a timber gate with a metal gate, and the comment from our heritage officer, not our heritage advisor, is that it should be replaced with timber if timber's the original. My question would be, why? Because that bank has got metal right across the front, metal fence, metal gate. You don't know whether it was an old metal gate that has been replaced with timber because of some reason. But the thing is, at what point in heritage do you say it's original? Because if you look at any of the houses here, something would have been originally being built. And over time, as people had money or whatever, they've done things. At what point do you say, well, we're going to take it right back to what it was on day one? So I have no problem at all with that building being, that gate being a metal gate that puts it more in line with the front bank.
Through Mr. Mayor, we did discuss with that the heritage committee, and we were going to seek some further information and photographs and just consult with the owner. It's still open and in the table. It's not a definite at this point in time because we did discuss it at the meeting. We'll investigate what the history is.
I just think the question probably is what is actually appropriate as to what date is.
To be, and I mean nothing by this, and to my, with many conversations over the last few years that I have with our staff members to do with the work that's always been done to show them with temporary steel. So, may I, to be supportive of your question, Councillor, always have those conversations. And it's just something that we deal with as we go. So it isn't, it's always the middle of the road, then to make somewhere, I think, isn't it? Thank you. Councillor Berry.
Mr. Mayor, to May, wouldn't it be up to the person applying the funding to actually what the was rather than the council? Verify?
Through Mr. Mayor, so it's, I guess it's a to and fro process. So at this stage, we haven't actually gone back to the applicant, so they've just lodged their application. It's been considered on what they've submitted. They may well have some information, but at this point, we haven't gone back to them until we have this recommendation.
Any other questions to Domain to do with the report, councillors? Councillor adopted his recommendations there, all in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. Councillors, on to our next one, page 51 in your hard copy, item ENV 21/20, development applications for the bed and breakfast, part-time function centre, 141 Miles Street. Come move and second to deal with this item, please. Councillor Murray, thank you. Second, please. Councillor Michael Petrie, thank you. And once again, I'll hand over to Mark.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, this development application is before council in accordance with council's policy, limit of delegated authorities in development applications and proposed development certificate, as we did receive 3 or more submissions that raised objection to the development. However, taking into consideration the concerns that were raised and the limited number of functions and size of functions that are to be held at the location, the recommendation is for approval, but subject to a temporary approval for a period of 2 years, commencing from the date of the first event. After that 2-year period, and during that 2-year period, we'll monitor the events that occur there. And at the end of the 2-year period, we'll consult with the applicant, with neighbours, to determine if there are any issues, and then at that point, make a determination to whether or not we can allow that function there.
Questions to Domain to do with the report, councillors? Councillor Bob Ryder, I'll go to you, Councillor Bromwich.
Thank you to Mr. Mayor. Tonight, that needed for the, was that, will actually make the council.
If we come back to council, yes.
Councillor Bromwich.
I was just querying for events such as weddings, etc., what kitchen facilities do they have in that building or would be paid for?
Through Mr. Mayor, they do have some within the building, but I understand they may bring outside caterers.
Right. And the other question is parking on property. I know it talks about parking along Miles Street. I'm just wondering why the parking in that open space as you access maintaining on the property, that area used for the function.
Through Mr. Mayor, that's correct. It is.
And so, say in 2 years' time, as Councillor Bob said, it comes back to us, and there is an issue with parking, they would then have to provide on-site.
Yes, so we would undertake that assessment at the time, just to determine what's the best.
And they have to have.
We look at that as well. We haven't inspected the kitchen, so it's still to the benefit of the site. But if they wanted to have the function be carried on site, we would certainly.
Any other questions to Domain, councillors? Councillor Brian Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The people in Miles Street, or at least 3 of those neighbours, are quite agreeable to have parking in front of their particular homes. What happens if they sell out in the meantime, or
Through Mr. Mayor, the parking is obviously on a public street. So whilst it's really just, I guess, a courtesy that these people are indicated that. So obviously, if they're legally parked on the street, there's much that they have to do about that.
Any other questions, councillors?
So one time.
I'll allow that, councillor.
Thanks. Page 58, under compatibility general. It says, possible negative interaction with normal yard duties carried out on the weekend, for example, mowing, etc. And it says that the proponent of the DA is willing to give assurances that this will not occur, that antagonism will not occur under reasonable circumstances. That they're not already on someone next door goes to mow. I take it the person putting the DA won't come to me to council.
Through Mr. Mayor, it's not something that the council could regulate in terms of the neighbouring. So I guess it's really an agreement between the adjoining neighbours if it complies with our relevant noise regulations that we monitor, there's really no.
So the notice
No expected to sit quietly and not let people. Not under provisions of consent.
Okay. Well, councillors, before we get Doc's recommendations there, to vote and approve, it is a planning matter, so we propose we record it, it's unanimous, we can go down to unanimous. Unanimous, okay, so that's the end of what we do. I'll just remind you about that.
We still need all.
Okay, that's fine, we just can't do the lazy one, look unanimous. Thank you, Colin. Right, the officer's recommendations, they're all in favour. Okay, so these are unanimous, so Councillor Petty, Councillor Berry, Councillor McNish, Councillor Peters, Councillor Robert Petrie, Councillor Bob Roden, Councillor Don Forbes, sorry. Christy, you'll get it. Councillor Brian Murray and Councillor Whitefield. No one else. One, two, three, yeah. So you good? Yeah. Okay, thanks, mate. Right, page 61, your hard copy, councillors. It's item EMB 22/20, Apex Park 4. Move to second here to deal with this item, please. Councillor Fish, thank you. Second by Councillor Brian Murray, and thank you. And I'll hand over to Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome, Joe, as always.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The purpose of this report is to provide council with information on the operation of the Apex Park 4 as a stock water board in the future. As we know, when water restrictions are released, our water stock purposes drought, the decision was made to provide water from the Apex 4 to the community for free. We propose to be for the Apex Park to cover costs of a dispenser, the DPI licence fee, and our calculations are based on 15 net meter utilization and charging of the legal charges for 2021. The recommendations are there. Number one is consider turning on the Apex Park 4 for stop use from level 2 water restrictions with activation of level 3 water restrictions and payment dispenser system, or consider turning on Apex Park 4 for stop use from level 2 activation of level 3 water restrictions and approve the water free of charge to the community, or turn the Apex Park 4 on outside of drought conditions and implement a payment system and update council's 2021 fees and charges.
Question to Fiona to do the report. Councillor Bronwyn, yes?
Just because town is on level 1, where it is, we are still in drought. I sent a map around the latest drought map. And I know the report refers to droughts like the 2018 drought. Well, it's still a drought. Tenfield, as you'll see from the map, Tenfield, Park Royal and Turner and Vivian and Wollongong are still droughted. Everything else in the state are recovery or drought affected. Now, I've had 3 people in the last 6 weeks approach me about the fact that the wall has been inaccessible. There are many dams even close to town with little or no water in them, and farmers have been getting water into their houses as of about 4 or 5 months ago. I know one family. So we are still in drought. So I cannot agree with this from level 2 water restrictions, because the town water restrictions are irrelevant to what's happening with people's stock. Don't mind whether it be, I mean, people used to have to pay purchasing the water when they went up to the opposite depot. That's fine, though I do note that on that rate of usage, we'll need 4.5 years of payment just to pay for the dispenser. But I just don't think, so therefore for me, it should just be number 3, turn on the Apex Park 4, leave the leak on our side of the drought condition, because we're still drought, and implement a payment system. I know there was a concern that some people might have been accessing the water for gardens, but there should be something there. If we go back into a level of water restriction thing, that it can only be filled with stock, who can access it, not people can put it. So I'd suggest number 3, deleting on outside of drought conditions, but adding the words
for stock use only. So,
Councillor, happy that I'll come back to you with that. We'll use that as an amendment then because we need to make a decision about this. Councillors, other questions to Fiona to do the report. Councillor Berry?
Just a couple of comments.
Yeah, mate.
The water's still being delivered in the Shire through rural aid. They delivered 150, it was on the news, 150 in the last couple of months into the northern, or into our Shire, plus into Southern Down. We've got dams still with some lower than they were this time last year. We've only had one little less rain this time, this month, than this time last year. But we're still in drought, and I think we should use not what the town level water is, should be on ELS say. That they do all the drought conditions, and we're in drought, we're in drought, it's simple as that.
It refers back to Councillor Roberts' comments.
Yes, that's right, okay.
I'll come to you, Councillor McNish.
So, yeah, I think we've got to look at it from a perspective of the landholder.
You finished, Councillor? Yeah. Councillor McNish, have you done?
Yeah, one question, one comment. I'll start with the comment.
Yep.
As you know, I've got a company out last year, I was out there 2 or 3 times a day, really. And I was amazed how many town people were out there with their utes, things. I heard stories and said myself, but there were stories of pushing and shoving and swearing and carrying on between farmers trying to get water to their place, and town people getting water to their gardens. It's open stuff out there. I think I'd like to see number 4 happen. Most companies wouldn't mind paying $3.25 a kilometre. If you put a charge on the dispenser, that will stop the town people because they're still going to pay something off, like we might as well just use our water from our tap in the town. Question to Fiona, what's the cost to set up one of those dispensers?
It's about $45,000.
It's in there on page 62, Councillor.
62, is it?
Yeah, with financial budget.
It does make the administration very easy.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But, because bearing in mind, there's going to be more and more droughts. We all know that's more common down there than before. I guess once we get the infrastructure up, then it'll be ongoing. I know that someone out there towards Black Rock, they're really out of water totally. Yes, it was stopped. So it is a real problem. It's the norm rather than the exception, I think, these days. But I'll be pushing on.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other questions to Fiona? To do with the report, Councillor Murray, yes?
I just want to know, does that 45,000 for that extension, is that attractive? Right.
You say, could we get funding to do it?
Yeah.
It's possible, it's something we have to look at.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions to do with the report, Councillor to Fiona? Your company, Councillor? Councillor Rogan, yes?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've just got clarification, please, on the report as far as the background goes.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually recall, but talks here about it was for dock within the town boundary.
That's exactly right.
So I assume that what we're talking about here is not that anymore. It's opening up for.
Just hang on. Councillor, it was because we worked out, and I know the CEO come in and help me, they actually worked out how much water with the water crops we're using, and we had it fairly down. It was really well received. I mean, that by the whole community.
Yeah.
In fact, the council put that forward, and that then I'll use Councillor McNish as an example. He's just leaving the town. We're using it to water stock, and he wasn't the only one. So that's what it was all about. Yeah.
No, I know that. No, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No, you're right.
But I'm just, it doesn't mention that here, so I assume that this recommendation is to open up for all use.
The CEO, I'll go to CEO for some comment.
Mr. Mayor, the Apex Park Board saved 3.3% of the town water supply based on how many people have stocked within the town. So you might be misunderstanding the imprimatur of it originally. The imprimatur originally was to stop people mainly on the private water line, and all the people around town that had troughs that had, 1, 2, 3, 4 head of cattle or a few sheep or whatever in the centre of town. It was to give them capacity to use non-potable water for their stock, and anyone else based on how much water was coming out of Apex Park, such that we reduced the use, and it worked out, we gained 1 day a month based on how much water we were using. So we saved a day's supply per month by the people going down to Apex Park. What ended up happening is 2 brothers who shan't be named from east of here decided they were going to use it as drinking water, and other people outside of the town that also had stock problems were using it, but it wasn't really an issue because number one, it was non-potable, but number two, we never actually ran out of the Apex Park bore water because we had a limited size hose on it and a limited pumping rate because it was only solar during the day. So we could only make, was it 33 kilolitres a day or something like that?
It was something like that too.
Yeah, it was 33 pods a day basically. By and with the time it took to fill up a pod, bearing in mind that we had no mains power to it, it worked out almost perfectly. But that one person leaving a pod and another person coming was only the amount that we could fill up, which was only the amount that the bore was replenishing. So it was sort of self-efficacious as far as that goes. It wasn't designed that way, it only worked out that way by accident, but it worked perfectly.
No, I was just seeking clarification that no intention of making it solely for this time, for town stock, it's for all.
It was never policed as only town stock originally.
I understand because they could use it.
Yeah, because we can only make, I think, 33 or 37,000 litres a day, and with the solar and the pump and the way it's all set up, I don't think we can make much more than 33 pods a day.
Right. But the clicker was Councillor Rogan at the time was to get them to turn their stock water boards up, which would come off the town supply, and which they did. That was a compromise to offer that. But yeah, it was used widely. It was well received. But no, but fair question.
Just to add to that, though, it wasn't solely for town people, because even though I know when they came to council and we had to do something about that private line and etc. At that same time, there had been farmers coming into town, running on the town supply, accessing water from the town dam. So it was also those farmers we had to stop using the town dam. So it was a combination of the two. So the report isn't quite 100% correct. And that doesn't give the image to people that water was only supposed to be for town. When we put that through last year, it was to help us with the town. It was to stop whether you're in town or out of town, either through your normal taps or through coming in with the depot to purchase that water. That was actually a combination of the both, and that's what then happened afterwards, is that both of those groups were able to access Apex.
Any other questions to Fiona to do? Comment?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, that the assumption of the court to update the council fees and charges if you don't advertise that. Essentially saying advertising is being charged for inclusion.
Councillor Berry, then we'll go to, I need to move on here, so I'll go to you, Councillor Berry. I know Councillor McNish, Councillor Brown, you've had a bit of yarn, I hope we'll get some go forward. So I'll come to Peter Langley's now, after Councillor Berry.
Just one more question.
Yes, Councillor.
If we go with line stop point 4, with these charges, those things can be activated by a card. A credit card. Credit card. And if you're in a drought, you should realise that people with cards could be activated by that machine as well. Just for the bank.
Now, interested in credit card. The fees that you
Yes, yeah, that's right, yeah, sorry.
I just think to go item 3 and 4.
With an amendment. Or I propose an amendment.
Right, we'll go and deal with that now, councillor Bronwyn, please.
So my recommendation is we go for 3 and 4, but with an amendment on 3.
Yeah.
Which after system, so turn the Apex 4 on, delete outside of the air condition. There'll be just turn the Apex 4 on and implement a payment dispenser system and reverse part 4.
Yep.
Signed for stock use only and with a camera installed, and that will deter anyone from town who's coming there dodging water for their garden, knowing that they're going to be on camera.
I think to be corrected myself, I thought we had a sign up there saying that's not for no, we're saying it's not potable.
Or non-potable.
Non-potable.
So
Okay.
necessary for stock use only and camera, have a camera there. It'll save a little bit of extra money, but also stop any vandalism. And as Holly said, she already has water being pitched down the Shirley Park,
So that's council, so we're dealing with the item. So our recommendation is going to be, the amendment's going to be 3.
Yeah.
Which you've got up here. No. Mr. C, sorry.
Through Mr. Mayor, there's no mains power down there, so a camera would have to rely on battery backup.
Yeah.
Which could be
Problematic.
expensive. No, not, you can do anything, you can throw enough money at it, but I'm just wondering whether or not, with bearing in mind there's no mains power, whether or not that's simple as it sounds.
Put a sign.
yeah, or can I suggest it? We just change that word into sign for stock use only and camera, and the sign say camera surveillance. Don't say where the camera is.
Yes, yeah.
Just.
Order, just order.
We do have some mobile CCTV cameras that we alternate between certain places.
Yep.
Do that.
Yep. The easiest way. Well, councillor Bronwyn, how are we going here? So this is,
Yes, so,
are we taking anything out of the officer's recommendation?
yeah, 3, take out 1 and 2.
Yes?
Turn 3 into the amendment.
Yep.
And leave 4 as is.
Right.
That's my proposal.
So you good with that, Kristen? Yep.
If we make it 1 and 2 and
Yep.
amend 3 as follows. And you can do the 1.
Right. So the amendment reads, to remove point 1 and 2, amend 3 as follows, turn the Apex 1, turn the Apex 4 on and implement a payment dispenser system, sign a payment dispenser system. Sign for use, to stock use only and with a sign saying camera surveillance. Yeah, simple as that?
Yeah, but
That's the amendment? No?
Number 4 becomes number 2.
number 4 becomes
Okay. I'll take it as an amendment. Councillor, you happy with the wording? Got a second for the amendment? Councillor Berry, thank you. Councillor Bromwell, you want to speak to the amendment? Councillor Berry being second, you want to speak to the amendment?
No, I think we said that.
Okay. Right, councillor, we'll put the amendment, all in favour? Against? Carried? The amendment comes off the recommendation, all in favour of the recommendation? All in favour of the recommendation? Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Page 64, councillors, in your hard copy. Each month's operation report, can I move to the second here, please? Councillor Berry, thank you. Councillor White, thank you. And I'll hand over to our CEO to present your monthly report.
3, Mr. Mayor, happy to accept questions by exception.
Question to our CEO to do the monthly report. Yeah, good question, Councillor Bond.
just a swimming, I just wanted to get an update on the notice about no earned swimming course for the leading pool, whether there's been a subsequent meeting. Thank you. We've had a conversation. Maybe.
Mr. CEO.
Harry, would you like to mention about the positive press we've had on the ABC on Macca and the other one that you mentioned yesterday, and the effect it's had in Tenterfield?
Thank you, Mr. C, and for you today. Some of you may already be aware, 2 weeks ago, there was some conversation on Macca, which began with a fairly innocuous phone call. Somebody ringing to say that they'd been to Tenterfield, had a lovely time, and they had experienced some interesting activity in the town. And that led on to more and more conversation, and virtually the whole show was taken up talking about Tenterfield. Following that particular show, a lot of it was around Bacon Rand, actually, Thomas Bacon Rand. And following that conversation, the next 2 weeks, the town has been inundated with people coming to Tenterfield and referencing Macca's show on that particular morning. And our numbers through the School of Arts over the past 2 weeks have probably been similar to what we would have had after the initial opening of the facility. So that's a very significant number. Now, since then, we've had another show that has been on there, and again, Tenterfield featured last Sunday. Tenterfield again featured quite strongly on the Macca program. So, as many of you here will probably know, you either love him or you hate him, and but he certainly has done us a power of good as far as bringing attention. Of course, Macca's a national program, so that goes on on that Sunday morning for 4 hours, 4.5 hours. So that was pretty good. Also, yesterday and the day before, we've been having this conversation. I know, Mr. Mayor, you have too, been having a conversation with Heather Hewitt from Back Roads, and Back Roads will be in Tenterfield on the 29th, I think, November, and to do a Back Roads story on Tenterfield. Quite exciting, you have seen, and again, a national program, and I think they're very, very keen to feature the mayor on his at the campground. So it's really good stuff happening there at the moment, and that sort of publicity that priceless that we got through there, absolutely priceless. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for that, Harry. That's great news, and it is good to see, and we all look forward to Heather and her team coming up for that week, and one revolver at Cantrop, but pleased that the Cantrop Club Committee have got together and reactivated, and they haven't had a draft for about 4 years, but they're all good to go, and it'll be great to see.
Just very quick, I've also got Better Homes and Gardens here about 3 weeks ago as well, and they'll be doing it. Good. My pleasure. Yes.
Councillor Berry, questions to do with the monthly operation report?
Yeah, one question and one comment.
Yep.
The 7:30 report also did.
My word.
The question was, how many empty shops have you got?
Answer you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Currently, it's at 6 empty shops. Update now, just recently, Gathering Yards resold, and that will come back into action pretty soon. We know the story around some of those shops that basically can't refill. I'm looking currently at the moment where the flower shop was. Magnolia. Yeah. Cool. I don't think that will remain it too long. But other than that, the old Retrovision store, or whichever, Federal Electrical. I've had some conversations with the owner of that building. He's trying to work out how he can make it more attractive. The problem with that building is such a big building, and today people are interested in stores, small stores, shops, and that's cheap. And we have that with a couple of our buildings in town. I think the vacant one High Street that was recently renovated has a similar issue around size.
Thanks, Harry. Thanks for the question, Councillor. Any other questions, councillors, to do with the to the CE or staff to do an operational monthly report. Councillor Reagan, yes?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering whether we can get a little bit more detail about the four installations.
I think all the one you really is the electric component on, one, I think that's an actual, yesterday, with, remediation work on the trenching as well. I was down to the transport, getting right out to, Dan Lane.
No questions to do with monthly operation report, councillors? If not, the officer's recommendations there, all happy to receive and note. Again, carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, I'll offer you, as we have been over the last couple of meetings, with our next item to do with our policies, we've got from page 65, you've got item GOB 77/20, item on page 68, GOB 68/20. Yeah, and then on to page 70, GOB 78/20. You're happy to move all them as one? Councillor Berry, thank you. Second, please, Councillor Reagan. All in favour? Carried. Now, Councillor, we're doing that. Happy to, if there was anything with exception you wish to speak or ask for in those policies. No, all good? Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Got you, that pretty check. All good. Right, councillors, moving to page 73. It's item GOB 79/20, finance accounts period ended 30 September 2020. Approve a second here, please. Yeah, you can. Well, I happen to do that, councillor, but I'm also, because of the lengthy work that our finance team do, I will ask Paul if he wanted to comment on anything. Are you happy with that? Right, so we'll put page 73, it's item GOB 79/20, and then on to page 76, GOB 80/20, and GOB 81/20, all to be adopted together, councillor, that's what you're saying? Yes. You happy to move that way? Yep. Second, please. Councillor Murray, thank you. All in favour? Against, carried. Paul, did you want to make any comment on any of those reports out of respect?
Through you, no, nothing specifically about these reports, but I do have appendix here.
Yes.
I might just ask him to come out and give a brief update on the state of the plan in front of the
No, that'd be great.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome to our two pennies. Long time no see. Sorry. I haven't been in trouble lately, so.
Mr. Mayor, we've made good progress in regards to our sale of land overdue rates. Currently, we put up 248,250,000, and we've actually collected 44%.
Wow. And
collected 111,000 of the funds that we put up for sale.
Great work.
So we've withdrawn 5 of our properties that will be going up for sale.
Good news.
Yes. So it's very well, and good work on pennies, so. We're going very well. So,
what about the intervention? How's that going?
The early intervention's going well. I'm just doing that suckers with the date. So at the moment, we're sort of tracking about 50% of pay, 30% of put in payment arrangement. We've got a couple more that we need to contact.
Yep.
So Queensland visited.
I will take my call later. Okay. What's your meeting?
Queensland visits are happening this week. At the play up there. But yeah, all tracking really well. David's done some really good visits. We've also been able to do extra with regards to having permission from those rate payers to pass on their details to
Jody at DPI to help them in regards to other drought relief, fire relief. There is actually a lot of people that are still missing out on our services in New South Wales. The fourth instalment of 1920 and also the first and second instalment of 2021.
Yep.
So we're still liaising backwards and forwards with Service New South Wales in regards to eligibility for some of those ratepayers as they've changed the goalposts in regards to farmland properties. And they're stating now that it'll be 75% of your farmland, not just your building, as it was previously. So sort of having a bit of to and trying in regards to that. So that has actually helped in regards to some of our early intervention people as well. So just giving that added support that they weren't aware of.
Any questions while we're here to our two things?
That's a quick question.
Yeah, of course you can.
I asked this question before, I got the incident. But those consultants, nice option, that sort of thing. How do they stand? People who pay their rates, who pay their pay up before the option. Do they get a commission or they don't?
They have a set standard fee that is charged to each ratepayer, and that's charged directly as soon as it was listed in the Gazette.
I see, so that the people who actually who didn't pay the rate do is still in charge of them.
Yes. So as soon as it was listed at the Gazette, the fee was charged to each ratepayer's account. So regardless if they have paid, we've already done all that network in regards to Gazette's advertising and other legislative requirements that we needed to do before it went to sale.
Any other questions, councillors? No? Well, thanks very much, and pennies and pennies. But I do need to comment councillors how lucky we are to have the staff now. I know that these two girls and all the rest of the staff in finance are at the coalface. You're dealing with our wonderful community we had that may be having some problems in the negotiation skills that you bring to the table. No, I can tell you now, especially from me, because I have plenty of conversations with our ratepayers to do with the results that they've achieved. Keep the good work up. Thank you. Right, councillors, that's the end of our open reports. We'll move on to our reports of delegates and committees. Yes, I apologise, councillors, we will go back to that question to see. Now, we moved that we boxed all those reports together. Now, we need to vote on that we deal with them as one, that we're all happy. So I will ask, we have a motion to put the three reports together, and now a motion to accept all reports. Okay? All in favour? Against? Carried. Right, we start with our first reports to do with our reports of delegates and committees. Page 81, your hard copy, councillors, item RC 23/20. It's to do with the Board of Regional Councils meeting held the 14th of August. I chair that and I wanted to do that, and I'm happy to move that way. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Murray, I thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions. Do the minutes, Councillor Bronwyn.
Just two, page 83, says about the coffee scheme.
Yep.
And the Brock support become a driver for the coffee scheme, and that's the diversion of Clarence into the area.
That's correct.
I'm just wondering why the focus would be on that as opposed to the modified rainfall scheme, which would actually rainwater out.
That's a very good point also, councillor. That's been there for some time, and we're very, not so much hesitant, but with timing and what we've been doing, they followed up too much, and I was opening into that. At Moree, the Brock meeting, a group of members decided they presented a report to that meeting. So that's where that comes from, with the coffee scheme. If someone wanted to bring the Bradfield scheme to the Brock meeting, happy to deal with that also. Because I know that I know with the current Queensland election, I know the LNP had committed that they would pursue the Bradfield scheme. Yeah. So it's something I have known, yeah.
I mean, yeah, because I think that is the one that, I mean, there's a lot of issues with Clarence one and the Clarence people and the fisheries and everything.
Tell me about it.
Whereas the Bradfield one modified,
Yes.
instead of what we going to lay in, those who don't know, we bring it down to
Thompson, Warrego, and then back down to New South.
Yep.
Has got much more legs, and a lot more benefit to Queensland and New South Wales.
Councillor, for the next meeting early in November, happy to take that there and be supporting, and nothing against what you said, but you know what I think about the water and what we should be doing. But to be supportive of maybe the LNP's moves in Queensland to be supportive of the qualified greenfields game. Happy to do it, councillor.
But my other question was on page 90.
Yep.
Also deals water.
Yep.
It's got, former mayor, is working with University of Southern Queensland to map water across the border. Does this mean map the Queensland water or the New South Wales water? I'm not sure which water, side of the border.
Very good question. Now, the CE and I, we met with these people. They come down one evening and we went down a meal with them. Going back to the original meeting, which I couldn't go and do with, I think I was away at a conference and Councillor Berry, you attended for me.
Yeah.
To go, and it's just about forming that relationship with our cross-border neighbours. I spoke to Mayor Plummer again in the recent weeks to continue on these conversations. So, not really answering your question, Councillor, but yeah, they are. They're trying to map both sides. So, but they were after, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Caesar, they were after a bit of funding, weren't they? Help them with their call.
Through Mr. Mayor, we met with them. They wanted funding to do research. It was my opinion that they were quite well motivated, but having spoken to people within Linda Paisley's office and also James McTavish and consultant we use that's from the water industry, there isn't anyone within government or private industry that can actually name all the people that are currently doing studies and got skin in the game for water. I could name about 12 just from around here, and that's excluding all the irrigation councils. That's excluding the Shooters, Farmers and Fishers Party. That's excluding special parliamentary committees. There's 2 irrigation groups just in the Regional Development Australia Northern Inland. There's the Glider and the Nimrod. So I was a little bit concerned that it'd just be another study and another only adding to the confusion of water management at the moment. And on top of that, just in the New South Wales government, there's 7 different entities. Well, now there's 8 because they added a 4th one to make the first 3 less confusing. I'm not joking. There's 7 entities or 8 entities just in the New South Wales government looking at water. So, you know, I'm wondering how much studies you can do before everyone comes to the same conclusion. And there's a new one now with Water New South Wales doing the Border Rivers, the climate change one that the Mayor and I have been to. So there's 13 or 14 just in our area as it is, and that's only the ones that I can think of within Pennyfield. So I'm sure they're really highly motivated. I'm sure they've got the right idea, but I'm not sure whether it's actually going to make any difference or whether or not it was worth supporting financially.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, because I was just wondering what's left of now between both governments that put all the maps in place.
Councillors, any other questions to do with the report? Yeah, Councillor Berry.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, on we looked at in detail at ranking to their email that was commissioned by the Water Resources in South Wales, and we talked a bit about the possible new dams that were available locally.
Yep. And thank you, Councillor, back to your relationship with the Mayor of Torrens, how far that goes back to delegate that date, so it was really appreciated.
That's right back with that.
He does. He's done well with our inspection too. Okay, Councillors, reports there. No more questions? Happy to receive the note. Against? Carried. Councillors, move on to page 92 in your hard copy. It's item RC 24/20. It's the report from the Roads and Traffic Committee meeting, and once again, being the chair of that, I'm happy to read that one. Have a second, please. Councillor Berry, thank you. Have you taken any questions, councillors? Councillor Bromwich?
Yeah, with Drake, it's on page
Yep.
96 and 97, it talks about the deputy refuge, and then it talks about the speed zone, beautification, bus stop.
Yep.
Nowhere does it mention the footpath, yet it has been raised several times about extending the footpath so that our Drake village residents are not forced to walk on the bitumen edge of a major highway. But nowhere in the traffic report does the word footpath even come into light.
Councillor, what I'll promise you that we have a meeting early November, and that's that report and that to do with the report here on page 97 with the bus bay and the Drake Village highway speed zone. And the CE was as pleased as I was. Our rep from RMS or Roads and Traffic New South Wales now, he's the best one that I've seen. He's very supportive. What we're trying to do, Councillor, is marry what we're trying to do up there in Drake, including the footpath, in that beautification stuff. He reckons he can get money through the state to do with the highway. Hopefully we can make it cheaper for us to do. We'll do all this work together. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
But we often see stuff in the traffic report that it took 2 years to get council white lines, which were replacement lines for existing ones. It's going to take somebody to get run over before it happens, because we have people, elderly people, school kids, walking on the bitumen because where that road pinches in, they cannot get up over that grass hill.
Yep. And
I just think it's appalling. And so can you please push that? The other two I've got, Barlow's Gate Bridge, 5-ton loading. I wonder what the impact there is on farmers, and page 99 to do with the cycling group.
Yep.
And sending a letter off to the cyclists to have a safety officer and open signposts on routes, ensuring mobile phone coverage throughout the ride. Well, good luck. Fair, isn't it? Do we want them to travel through the Tenerife side? We want them to stick around Tenerife town edge. Otherwise, good luck with the mobile phone coverage.
I'll deal with both items, Councillor. I'll go to Fiona for some comment on Barlow's Gate Road. If you can, Fiona.
The impact on the farmers, there's been a conversation with farmers up there. One in particular has a special one co-op and they have in particular lies over the bridge, and the only hold up was the work of Barlow's Gate is COVID and the materials which are coming back at it, and we believe that shortly after that we've seen some of the construction already taking place back in the garden, and it has been delayed. Yes.
And Councillor, to do with your question, to do with that last item, page 99, what we're trying to do is to be supportive as we can as a local government area, and where it come up, because flyers, let's say, have been handed around the high school, promoting this, which is fine. But if you know yourself, Councillor, and I do, you've got a group that could be 20, 30 or 40 bike rides. There needs to be some sort of acknowledgement that there needs to be like a plan and safety things done. Because we don't want to see anyone hurt or anyone sued or whatever. So that's right, but that's what it's sort of all about, starting that conversation.
And that's fine,
Yeah.
and to have it, make sure it's safe. But you can't put an unrealistic condition in there, ensuring mobile phone coverage throughout the ride. Most of us need people to come to our farms, if that's considered a work health and safety thing. And that's nonsense. That I would suggest that is, whoever came up with that idea needs to go out of town and actually find out where mobile phones actually work. And we're encouraging people to go for bike rides and tourism walks and everything else. Good luck to having mobile phone service out there. So it's got to be a bit realistic, Pete.
Yep. We'll work with it as it goes. Okay, any more questions? Sorry.
Just one comment, please, Mr. Mayor, on those, the guidelines are an RMS guideline, that there's concurrence required through RMS and police to have these riding events. So it is more about having the police and a Shire representative themselves, on this space, just in a way forward that they can run these events that actually mitigate those risks that are possible. It's not something that the council are enforcing, it's something that goes with
The further information, if you look on line 3, it says to ensure, not as a recommendation, it actually says to ensure mobile phone coverage, if you can drop down to B. The other thing is, there's an event and there's the get-together. So events are a full-on organised thing. People who get together and go to a bike ride, that is not an event. And so there's a big difference between the two. And I think that needs to be recognised. I think that was lost in the committee meeting, that a certain activity that took place was not actually an event at all. It was simply a get-together. So people need to go to get a group.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor, and Gary, thanks for your comments. We'll go to you, Councillor Paul, and you, Councillor Berry.
Yeah, I'll just refer to page 98, business without. It says the following items were discussed and debated on the.
Yep.
I just wondering what was the outcome, or what's going to be the outcome of vehicle speed in that street.
There was a concern to do with the vehicle speeding up there, and I think we've put counters in there at the moment, Fiona.
That's correct.
Yep.
Nearly took me out, no more than that come down the shed.
There you go.
What's that again?
We got cleaned up, come down the shed there one day. Put the bloke
There were
up.
concerns about speeding in that street, Councillor.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that-
And also they're avoiding the camera.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Through Mr. Mayor, Mayor Petty and myself met with James Bowden yesterday, and what appears to be happening is if people put on their GPS fastest route, they're getting and they're heading east from Queensland. They're getting diverted along Old Ballabine Road and Mount Enzie and Boundary Road, and onto the Brooksnut, Bellevue, sorry, not onto the Brooksnut. And the same thing may be happening with people that understand that if you avoid the camera and duck along Pelham and duck down Nash Street, particularly if you're behind a heavy vehicle, you can beat the heavy vehicle out back onto the New England Highway, or they continue down Pelham all the way to the other end and then go down the other end of town, and they don't have to go through the 40 k's line of pedestrians and things like that. So James understands that there's people speeding in Pelham Street, people speeding in Nash Street, and people, because they're watching their GPS and some of them aren't locals, they're not actually cognizant of what the intersections are and things like that. And we had another accident on the weekend at the corner of Mount Enzie and Old Ballabine, and our engineering staff have investigated and done some assessments of what we can do at that intersection of working with people. But people are disengaged with where they're driving. They're more worried about what their GPS is telling them about their surroundings, and that's really affecting Tenterfield because there's a couple of quicker ways around the CBD.
Is that the only question you had, Councillor?
Yeah, so what are you going to do now? You're going to then sort of.
I think you've got counters in there tomorrow, notes, yes? Yeah. Yeah. It's not an unusual request, Councillor, that comes right across all around the shore. And we got 5 sets or something like that of those counter things?
Yeah, we have 5 sets.
Yeah.
They're not all on that street, obviously.
No, and what we do, Councillor, if there is a concern, then we'll take them up and put them in an area, and that just tests heavy vehicle speed, everything. It gives you some statistics to come back with. Okay, Mr. Mayor. I'll go to Councillor Berry, then I'll go to you, Councillor McNish. Sorry, Councillor Berry.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't.
I apologise, you did mention that this morning. We'll deal with that right now.
John was asking with the events and that, we did discuss that. With what RMS said. So we were aware of all that. If you missed the mobile phone, I thought it was measure something checked, you know, where they go, we wasn't mobile phone.
I think so. Councillor, you had a correction to do with this report. What's your correction?
I just not
No, Councillor McGinnis, sorry, Councillor Berry.
No, that was yours, so I just ended.
Oh, that was the correction you want?
Yeah.
Right.
And I just ended
Apologies. Sorry about that, Councillor McGinnis, I'll go to you now.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, some years ago, Astrid came up and being at the bottom there when they put heaps and heaps of people putting up, this is possible. Maybe just need to correct it and just put at the bottom there with the radar tape, still solve that problem. It's just solved then obviously.
Comes in cycles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions to do with the report, councillors? Councillor Rogan, I apologise, then go to you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Rogan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just, getting back to, the, benefit of life.
Yep.
I just, first of all, question, was anyone, invited to the?
No, because this sort of come up with business without notice. So you're referring to the minutes. So it was just actually brought by a staff member, which I really appreciate because their kids are at the high school.
Could I make a suggestion that next time, this, there anything to do with them comes up that someone's invited along from them? This, the word, you know, to ensure and all those, points from later. I think all that needs revisiting. I mean, Councillor Bondman has spoken about most of it, but things like safety officer, motorcyclists with vests. So some of these routes that these gatherings are likely to take, I went on with motorcyclists. I sort of think that have or in front or whatever, because of the roads and the surfaces and all that sort of stuff. Less than off-road bike, a dirt bike. I just suggested needs revisiting in another meeting and maybe invite someone along to give their perspective for all this.
Happy to, but to repeat myself, it was there without notice. So that's why I ended up. But it's all about getting on the right foot too, Councillor Rogan. It's about forming a relationship as we try and do. And this has been supportive, although we might disagree with a few things that come up. Jones made the comments that, you know, RMS were there, they're there as a representative of the roads and traffic. So we're trying to work with them to do the right thing.
Just making a suggestion.
Good, you're told me. Councillor Murray.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just inquiring about the naming of the Tavium Bridge.
Yep.
What's happening with that?
Do you want to comment on that, Mr. Senator?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the regional, is it Vicky? Anna?
She's the original, well, she worked at a regional.
No, was it Vicky?
Yeah, Vicky.
Vicky Sisson.
That's it.
Yeah, Vicky Sisson from Transport New South Wales contacted both myself and Graham Kennett from Kyogle and asked us to do stakeholder engagement community consultation with the community. I spoke to Graham Kennett and Harry and or Rebecca arranged to meet with Coble Shire and West Bundjalung and East Bundjalung and people from Tabulum, the village, Jugulum, the people from Jugulum to discuss. Transport New South Wales wanted an Indigenous name for the bridge. And have we had that meeting with the East Bundjalung, West Bundjalung yet?
We haven't had it yet, CE, we've actually in contact with a gentleman yesterday, last evening, and they're trying to arrange that meeting down in Tabulum. So the actual group of those people which has been engaged is growing somewhat.
Yep.
Quite large, so my take on this is not going to be an easy process.
It's never going to be an easy process because they don't agree with each other.
It's going to take the discussion, but well and truly on the
through Mr. Mayor, and after that happens, there'll have to be a report to both councils. So Cove will have to do a report to their council, we'll have to do a report to our council, and then write a jointly signed letter to the Transport New South Wales saying this is what the community has said. What do you want to do? In the end of the day, it's not our bridge. It's Transport New South Wales bridge, but they've asked for help to, because they don't know anyone, of course. They've asked for help to talk to the community, whatever they want.
Go to the community cabinet itself.
Sorry, say again,
Does
councillor.
it go to the community cabinet?
Well, it should, of course it should.
Have you got a date at all for that?
Not too much.
Okay, so, we're hoping that the meeting arranges within the next 2 weeks. That's now the table.
Can you let us know when?
So, it'll be well funded. Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? Sorry, councillor.
Through Mr. Mayor, can
Yeah.
I just extend the question?
Yes.
So I take it that the old bridge will be pulled down and timber sold, is that what's happening there? or-
Went to the Land Environment Court on the 21st.
Oh, right.
We got an email and there was enough evidence to support what the people who are pushing to retain the bridge and which will be dismissed. That's the email.
The injunction application.
Sorry, councillor.
The injunction application.
It still falls the Thames Bridge.
Yeah, if you want to ask Fiona and talk about the meeting we had with Transport New South Wales about the bridge timbers.
Yeah,
Well, wait.
so we, the Vicky Sisson and, Gunbury and the engineer that's looking after the demolition works that's going on Friday. They got through something. They're already flagged for some work in artwork that's going to happen. There's going to be across the trying to incorporate into the new bridge, and they're offering some of their earnings and some of their cool things that might be of use for us. We don't have any inventory as such at the moment, but in over the next coming months, their bridge engineer will go down and inspect some of the girders specifically for reuse in been gifted to us, and we'll have a decision based on what we need for our own bridge.
If Fiona can ask, could that be used on the railway bridge, northwest, and the railway bridge? Some of those timbers?
It's not a bridge, that's I think it's John Holden Bridge.
Yes.
And probably something.
But good thought, councillor.
Yeah, no.
Well, is there, sir?
Look, Transport may offer, the likes of John Holden's, at the moment, we're offering existing structure use for the government. And there are some good quality timbers in there. And their size, some of them are the sizes that we're actually finding it hard to source from timber mills. Good quality timber.
And the share of councillors, and we'll put these, to be accepted, these minutes. To do with that meeting with the sergeant yesterday, and I think to CE and Eric for making themselves available in day council, please pass on the day our thanks to Fiona because he was very good. The sergeant, we have a great relationship with our sergeant and his concerns are of the intersection area as ours are. Mountains in Old Ballandine, the Boundary Road. There was another accident there on the weekend. No one was hurt badly, but it could have been really, really bad. But he's gone away from that meeting really pleased with the plans worked on for the intersection, with signage and with putting in funding for a roundabout down the track. So I'm sure that with you as councillors, if you're asked that that's exactly what's on. But it's all good. Okay, the report said councillors all in favour. Against, carried. Move on to page 100. Another report to do with an expired RC 25/20, Murray Darling Association. Councillor Sawyer is absentee today. Would someone like to move the adoption of this report? Councillor Forbes, I thank you. Second, please. Councillor Bromley, thank you. Any questions to do with the report, councillors? There to note. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Page 112, councillors. Item RC 26/20, from Parks and Gardens open spaces. Councillor Murray, being the chairperson, you have to move that way. Second, please. Councillor Berry, I'll take you. Councillor Murray, once again, being the chairperson, you have to speak to the report.
Oh, yes, just to, well, a couple of things. Parking, the powering ahead is more tree planting, which is excellent. And the other thing I'd like to bring up is that we're not at all represented from anywhere in the areas. I'd like to see much more representation.
Yep.
Sort of top heavy for people from Phillip.
So council, I mean, not that I get to attend them all, but I mean, the opportunity is always there for those villages to have delegates come and attend, and they have over the years. I think you'd admit to that. So it probably wants a bit of a fluff up and remind you that it is there and they're quite entitled to attend. I'll go to that, Sir, and I'll go back to you.
And Councillor Murray, would you think it'd be worthwhile for us to put something in the next, your local news, asking for, reminding people they can, or asking the village people to express an interest so they can be invited? That's very important.
Yep. Go back to you, councillor, and apologise. Did you have any more to report on?
No.
All good. Any questions to Councillor Murray as chair? I'll go to you, Councillor Berry, then you, Councillor Bromley.
I think it's the right investigation for help.
Oh, so, well, it's mimicking how I put it that way.
Oh, also we original plan was that they can't do that.
No. But the idea was that.
No, I haven't. I need to talk to you about that.
The idea is that the water would flow out of the septic and obviously into the helmet to indicate from the helmet catchment.
Because I always thought, I'm sorry, Councillor Berry, I'm supporting your question because I've even got a photo somewhere of the design of that. And it's definitely a lighter was happening. Slash.
Yeah, so the kangaroo feathers.
The kangaroo and the fence was done to the kangaroo feathers.
Right. Order, please. Order. Councillor Berry.
Few spelling mistakes there too. I'll get to Bron before she goes to spelling. This is Jennings partition, not a partition.
Right. Councillor Bromley, you have questions to the report?
No, this one, well, I do, but I support Cambridge first. The pin oak trees in Logan Street.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that a 2 minute plan was going to replace the pin oaks with black cherry plum. Is that as they die, or is it an active remove and replace?
Very good question, Councillor. I can't answer you. Councillor Murray, yes?
Yeah, there will be replaced
As they die. Is it a succession thing, not a deliberate, we're going to go and come down and collect?
Because I was doing a wonderful job, Councillor, in Roxburgh or High Street, but anyway, but the replacing of the pinnows with pinnows as they die on there, I really commend the Parks and Gardens for doing a great job.
those trees are heritage.
I'm just wondering if are they replacing them with the cherries because the pinnows are too tall into the houses or what?
Because there's a lot of complaints coming, as council probably understand. A lot of complaints. There's been a couple of occasions where the planning used in oaks and forest.
Unbelievable.
I think just terrible.
No, Councillor Norman, totally good, but I can't, Mr. C, can we come back, like through Parks and Gardens with the answer to that? Gary? Oh, I'm sorry, apologies.
Yeah, no, it is as the three sites be replaced or issued power lines, so in terms of creating that. On the street, and actually plant so tall as that, that is uniform, that is pleasing, that you can increase the size of the site. As long as the trees are being removed, that the trees will come and the avenue will take as they go, as they go. So we've got a couple that are due to removal now, so the ones with stickers on there, yep, they are due to.
My other thing is the, same page, pre-identification, created pre-identification on all trees. I think there's been a map completed for an identification. I thought with the arborist, when the arborist came on board, we did the plan of where all our trees are in town. So that's why I just was wondering, is that just simply now a case of printing that map? Because I'm sure one of your previous reports said all trees have now been identified and mapped.
Yeah, normal sugar, yes.
Okay, and then stopping people walking on gardens, the chains that are outside the post office, etc. They look really tacky. I was going to say,
Yes.
it says paving planting will also stop people walking through the gardens. I'd prefer to see a cost on extending the existing metal black posts and the permanent chains rather than the tacky little white stuff, plastic stuff. Maybe we could get a costing on a permanent structure there and see whether we can budget for that so it looks half decent.
Just go to see you for some comment, councillor.
Through Mr. Mayor, look, we can do that. That's shouldn't be much of an issue. We have had some vandalism, which the council may have noticed, previously in front of the chainsaw shop. That was late Saturday night. Someone decided to pull that out and put it in upside down.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
They did some other damage in the street as well, and that was one of the reasons James Bowden come and spoke to Mayor and I and Harry and yesterday talked about that. But yeah, by all means, we can. It doesn't need to be too sophisticated. We can do an estimate for that. And
We can bring it back. I think the idea was to establish. So if we want to change that, just to stop damaging.
But it may, if there's a need, I just think it looks so much better if the existing infrastructure is simply extended. Rather than the white plastic. Final thing, there was damage, I think we should get a photo of the damaged tree and put it in the two Tenterville, the our Tenterville and the What's Happening on Tenterville Facebook pages so that people see. Last one, tree damage, page 116, water main replacement, Rouse Street and Manners to Saddlers. It says gardens will need to be removed and replaced for this to be completed. That's incurring tree damage. Is that going to happen every time?
Don't get boiled.
The water main replacement, that means, is not something that we actually schedule, but transport comes, there's a major rehabilitation on the New Highway, expected to start around the March 2021, so it gives us the to place some executive dashboard and a lot of money for restoration. It's simply those works that are upcoming with transport and daily days and hybrid. We're only going to have something this coming calendar, but there are some more works on the northern side of the highway. They've got it there on their books, but not programmed. I don't believe it's going to actually continue. We're more talking from Mile Street, is smaller government towards, Mile Street, out towards the BP. So not right in the CBD, there's no words actually in CBD.
It says on there, that they're asking.
But smaller government, so actually,
What we're trying to manage our parties, at least, you know what I mean, and really, yes. Salvage grants for a period of time, so that's the loss, I guess, is the action. Discussion. Minimise the damage, you get the most out of the paints that are there at the moment, and you see them.
Councillor Fisher, the question to do with the report.
Well, it wasn't, it's not a comment, just having a bit of background, as pin oak trees, they were planted as a job creation thing in the Depression. Wow. So that make them pushing 90-year-old now, so obviously that's going to last them. My parents lived in Logan Street, there was massive problems with the roots that kept going, but houses getting sewage lines. That's why a lot of them sort of disappeared over the years. Strangely, for that very reason. So I think, nice as they are, I think it's time for them to place.
You know, there's a clear net.
And I think we have paid homage to, is it Namsro Robert Bush,
Regularly.
to action. Good foresight.
Righto. Councillors, the report's there, all happy to proceed on that. Against, Gary? Councillor Woodville, our demo item is the next one to deal with, and it's RC 27/20. The Tourism Advisory Committee meeting was held at the Kiev. Councillor Rogan, being the chair of it, you happy to move that way? Second, please. Councillor Murray, thank you. Councillor Rogan, once again, being the chair, did you wish to speak to the meeting? To do the report?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I will just briefly, look at some of the meeting was 30th September at the end. Now, over time, the committee has worked with the people of the Northern region, and in particular those that were interested in reinventing or reinvigorating their tourist association that they have in that local area. I'm pleased to say that that's back up and operating again. Their main concern, what we did was listen to everything they requested all along, and it's been difficult at times. As some staff members can attest to, working with actions up there, including local shires, body, and various, individuals had, different priorities, but eventually it all come together. These workshops were carried out there by outside consultants and all that sort of stuff. And they fairly happy now, they've got their own marketing identity, and some signage has been agreed on, and the planning for that signage is well underway. It's been accepted by the tourism operation. They actually pay for the artwork and come up with the design themselves. There should, it says here, both our photos attached to the item, so I did intend to have the signage there, and we did request that, but anyway, look, I'm sure we could come up with that signage if anyone wants to see them, but it's what those people in the northern region requested, it's what they come up with, it's what they want. It's basically a round sign that depicts houses. I think it's a back on the hill or something to sort of superimpose on and some wording for the mountains gateway to adventure or something along those lines. It's quite it's quite a neat logo, so they've got their own marketing identity. To avoid, so that's the first thing. The other, the main focus of the meeting was about that signage and about some of the stuff that they would like to see happen to improve tourism. And to that end, the allocations of grant funding over the last, I've seen a lot of stuff go on in the northern region that benefits tourism. So they've had a good whack at it, and I think they've done well. Signs are in the final planning stage, so they can be erected. Sites chosen for that are 4 in Hemphill Shire and Oval region, 2 in Ayrshire, which are the entry to that part of the place. Now, from here, the intention of the committee is to sort of, we've spent so much time since the committee started concentrating on the northern region. We'd like to pull back a little bit and concentrate on boosting membership and seeing what the committee can do around the more central Shire. So the minutes are there, and happy to take a question.
Question to Councillor Reagan as chair of the meeting. Councillor Murray, I'll go to you then, you, Councillor Bromwich. Councillor Murray.
Through your respect, I'm so pleased that you're bringing up the Kildare Road. That's a very scenic route.
Sorry,
But Kildare, like Kinsey Road.
yeah.
And it brings, ironically enough, it brings it into the net of animals. It's not like it usually is. And sheep, cattle, and just a lot of city would like to get close to that. And so I think that's a good thing.
Councillor Bromwich, you had a question to do with the report?
One question and a comment. Urbanville, I was just wondering how Councillor Bob raised some of the grant funding that's gone on. I was just wondering if there's been any work started on the upgrade and the museum in the area.
Yeah.
Ask the footpath works are scheduled. On the a couple of jobs and all works with concrete building and that we really
We're just in the process of finalising. Just negotiate.
No, situated outside the hotel and with veteran disabled access, lining up some the footpath access across the road. So we'll be finding up the opportunities, legally outside the hotel, so there's a favourite area rather than that side being very off. And a general tidy up for that footpath, predominantly being that disabled access here as well. Benji.
I saw the ceramic lady from Make It this day. The studio out on the that'll be another good thing going up that way. And just an update with the closed Autumn Festival next year, and on the Easter Monday, having activities here Friday, Saturday, Sunday up to lunchtime included. But talking to the Piano Mill people about their event Sunday afternoon at Liston, and on Easter Monday, trying to get people to go up to, Bundaberg, Baldock, the Coach Museum. Aluna will, I think, put a barbecue on Monday lunch. And come to a high country, happy to take day visitors to bushwalking and mountain bike riding, so we can save people on the way back to the river. Is it here, rather than going up, go through this way and see this.
Good, that's good news. I gave a question to Councillor Reagan, Mr. Chair. Yes, of course, Councillor.
In relation to what Councillor Murray mentioned about Kildare Road, why that's in here, I can explain that a little bit. Stephen Sexton, who runs Tenant Village, gave us a bit of a help, at this meeting on the 30th, and he indicated that Kildare Road is ready to takes all the time. But there's interest in bringing coach tours to this part of the world, and particularly that is one of the main. But once Mount Lindesay Road is complete, then there's a coach route. There's more because they're going to do some work on that road, on Viagra as well, right down to the mountain. And one of the main attractions that you see is in Tenerife, all those long formations and stuff out the back. So I think it's important to have that frequency, of grading and that sort of stuff there. The frequency of grading, you know,
not off the top of my head, I don't know that just finished grading this week. In the last 2.5, 3 weeks. I think it's twice a year,
Well, I think twice a year.
Councillor Berry, you have a question to do with the report?
Thank you. Just a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I've sent the request through to Harry for better support for the Harrigan Art Piano Mill. They're chasing a regional arts recovery grant, and they're trying to continue to plan the Easter Festival, music workshops, have artists residents in the properties, providing access to technology for local people, raising the profile of arts, developing art skills, benefiting local tourism by bringing audiences to the regions, enriching local cultural activity, extending audience experience for partnership with the local council. So that area is on the move, but that type of thing happens. We've got quite a lot of that makes a serious area. We've got losers trying to get the old police page done up as to what it was. We discussed with the from council for community grant and donation for the sign there, but we've extended that down to the whole police page. So I'll keep you involved and talk to you about that. Yes, I think that's really
Thanks, Councillor. Okay, councillors, the report's there. All happy to receive and note? Yes, carried. Councillors, that's the end of our reports. There's no notices of motion. We'll move on to the resolution register. It's item RES 9/20. Can I for the council resolution register for October 2020? I'll move to second here, please. Councillor Michael Petrie, second by Councillor Brian Murray. Thank you. And I'll hand over to Acelia.
3, Mr. Mayor, happy to accept questions by exception.
Any questions to Acelia to do with the resolution register? Councillor Bronwyn, you've indicated.
It's just one, from our June meeting, we allocated money in the budget to maybe all the main our business cases we received at the workshop. I just thought we were actually going to consider the second step to that today, but.
3, Mr. Mayor, there'll be a report going to the November meeting, and the reason that it was my decision to hold off on putting it in today was number one, we got the information the day after the reports were able to do the 19 put the business paper, so it would have been a late report. And number 2, it was a 60-page report from Regional Development Australia and Northern Inland, which was forwarded to all councillors within 24 hours of us getting it, and also a hard copy that we out the workshop. And with such a complex report with so much information in it, I didn't want councillors to feel like they were being rushed into any decisions. I wanted them to have time to read the report, come back with any questions if they had, apart from the fact that it was 24 hours after the business paper was due anyway, because it's a significant, very, very significant thing for Tenterfield, and I thought it would be best if councillors had a month to go through the document, seeing 6 pages long and it's quite complex.
Now, questions for CE to do with the resolution register? Reports of officers' recommendations there, all happy to note. Against, carried, thank you. Councillors, that's the end of our normal meeting. We move into a confidential meeting. Can I have a mover in a second to go into confidential, please? Councillor Michael quickly, thank you. Second by Councillor Berry, all in favour? To do with our, with meeting procedure, we read the recommendation to the class in our confidential. To do with item CRF 31/20, virtual land for operational purposes. The officer's recommendation was supported at Council 1. Authorise the director of infrastructure or the delegate to bid on lot 15, section 44, DP 758359, Alice Street, Drake, up to an amount in the report of the auction being held on 20th November for the sale of land one road road. 2. Authorise the director of infrastructure or the delegate to bid for lot 4, section 40, DP 758359, Brookston Highway, Drake, up to amount in the report at the auction being held on 20th November 2020 for the sale of land front road roads. 3. Authorise the chief executive officer to negotiate any outstanding or minor conditions in relation to the above purchases and to be authorised to execute any documents in relation to these matters. To do with item CECO 15/20, of purchase of lot 13, Tennefield Industrial Estate, the officer's recommendation that Council 1 agree to proceed to the sale of lot 13 of the Tennefield Industrial Estate Park as stated in the report. Councillors, that is the end of our meeting. I thank you all very much. Had a good meeting, and the meeting is ended. Peace and heart. I wish you well. And Mr. CE just wants to go back